is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Awaken, The Children of Divinity, Book 1, Chapters 13, 14, 15. That's the end. I thought that I got 16. No, 13, 14, and 15. In these chapters, there is a pretty awesome development that catches me quite by surprise, and I am extremely excited about it. I don't know what it signifies, but I'm here for it, regardless. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Heather for commissioning this episode. Heather is here in the chat. And yeah, this section of chapters really was extremely tense. And in a way that I have to give your husband credit here, Heather. I felt such dread reading the scene where Archie, as I call him in my head for some reason, comes home, because I knew these guys, there's no way they're letting these people live. Like, they left his daughter as the only one with her eyes bound so that she couldn't see them. And the significance of that was not lost on me. However, even so, I knew that it was going to go really badly. And even the moment where they're like, we're going to start with the hand and work our way up, I did catch that he didn't say your hand. And so Archie's thought next was, well, I don't care about my hand. And I'm like, I'm sure they know that. And indeed, even though I saw that coming, when it happens, it's so sudden, and with so little preamble, they don't threaten. They just do it. That it made it that much worse. And I was really sure they weren't getting out of it. I was like, well, I guess I'm going to watch this character die, and whatever happens with his daughter, we might see her again, seeking revenge for what happened to her parents, but this is the end of the line for this guy. And then it goes so differently, and I was like, word! Because this bitch's power, it's understandable why she's never tapped into that before. That is a last-ditch superpower. That is not some shit that you just go into when somebody's bullying you on the playground, or you get pissed because they're out of your favorite smoothie. That is life or death. Oh, you think you're going to say how this all ends? I don't think so. And then you pull this stopper out. It's basically like just a suicide, but she wouldn't know that she was going to survive it, because I am assuming she has never used this ability before. She has never tapped into it before. This is her awakening, right? So, and I have to admire the fact that she really was ready to just fucking throw down with these guys. She didn't exactly know what she could do, I don't think, unless she had been able to manifest some other power that was a much more minor power before, and she never just went completely all out with it. That's the only thing that I could understand with the motion that she made, pointing her fingers, which sort of started the cascade of everything. But she really thought, you're dragging me off so that you can kill both my parents. I could understand why you're just well, I guess I'll die. I really get that. I don't know how all of us would react to that. I'm not sure how I would have reacted to that. I think it all depends a great deal on how you were brought up, the relationship you have with your parents, how ready you are as a person to go on your own and figure out your own life. And it seems like she grew up fairly privileged. And I could see that she would be somebody for whom this would be an absolutely earth-shattering event, you know? I don't know what would have happened after this. Her parents both being killed. You get sent to live with somebody else. I would assume that the rest of his family, like, I don't know what kind of situation she'd be put in, but it would completely change everything. So it makes a lot of sense that she just decides to go, she just goes sick house on their asses, basically. But we're going to get to that. First, we have to start off with the mad scientist, Dr. Spears, which, considering everything in the news about Brittany lately, any older male with the last name Spears is just going to be on my shit list right now anyway. So this name felt extremely appropriate to me, or I was like, oh, a monster who doesn't give a shit about the well-being of other people so that he can just get what he wants? You don't say. Just, you know, just saying. And yeah, this guy, he's working with a sort of Tony Stark-esque setup with his computer, and there's this sort of same three-dimensional virtual interface that he can control things and enlarge them and get into the system in order to see what's happening from the inside. And it's really cool sounding. It's a shame that he's a monster, but, you know, what can you do? And he even has this assistant that he has computer programmed like a Jarvis to have a really lifelike voice and emotional responses to things, which, you know, again, Jarvis. And then eventually he has, what is her name? Girl Friday? Is that her? I feel like Friday is the name of the one that he uses after Jarvis is made into Vision, but it is Friday. Okay. Thank you, Heather. That, like, program will tell Tony sometimes, like, that's not a good idea at all. No, we should not do that. And it'll still do it, but it'll make its feelings very known as to whether it approves or not. And while this system is right now on board with Dr. Spears, there's a certain, in his dialogue, admission that she is growing and changing her perceptions of things in a way that makes me wonder if she's always going to be on board. Like, he has her programmed right now to do what he says and, you know, have the same sort of, I would imagine, objectives that he does in terms of what they're trying to discover and find out and what kind of success they're looking for. So I don't know if that can change. You know, that's a pretty fundamental thing, your whole objective having to shift. But it's an interesting proposition. He is basically creating a more advanced AI than we've seen anywhere else in the story. So I'm assuming that this is pretty much the cutting edge and that nobody else has access to any sort of program of this nature with this kind of advancement at all. And I'm interested to see if this thing continues to be on his team. Because it just, the kind of coldness that he exhibits here, it's not just coldness. It's an enjoyment. Not to say he enjoys people's pain, but there's, the description is like him laughing at how people will exchange their lives, essentially, for paper, useless paper, because they don't understand what's actually worth anything in the world. And it's one of those that it feels cliche to read it, but it is how I think a lot of people do think, and not as many as I feel we could be worried about, although any feeling this way is too many, to be honest. But it rings to me as somebody who has never gone without. Because, yeah, people are willing to hand themselves over for money when their families are starving to death and they actually give a shit about their family. And they just don't want them to starve to death. You know, people are willing to risk their lives. I mean, we see what people are willing to do regarding just signing up for the military in the United States to get access to a free college education. And that's like, you know, that's not even that big a perk. I mean, in the grand scheme of life. And yet, so his sort of dismissal of that, I'm just like, yeah, what was your childhood like? What has your life been like? I don't feel that you know what it's like. And even if he did, I'm not sure it would help. Perhaps he did come from nothing, you know? And he just lacks empathy to such a degree that even having been in the gutter, he doesn't have any sympathy for anybody else. But I just was thinking about that and just thinking, like, you know, we all have our line that we're willing to draw where we're like, I would rather die than put myself through XYZ. And we all draw that line in a very different place. But the complete disdain that he exhibits makes me wonder. And the person that he is, like, experimenting on, because this starts off with him trying to awaken a regular human being. He's trying to unlock this code. And he has just, it sounds like he has run through hundreds of people by now. And it has never worked. He just keeps failing, and he's getting really frustrated. And he evidently has a pretty serious rage issue, because there's a moment after this one fails where he has to actively resist looking around to see something that he can kill. And I am really wondering what had happened in the past that has caused him to have such careful, locked down measures to cope with his emotional reaction. It's one of those things where I kind of enjoy the addition of the temper issue, because you could easily make him a complete feelingless, over-rational monster who is so coldly logical. And we've seen that kind of character before. But this feels a little bit more human and interesting. To dash of completely out of control rage that he has to fight with all the time. That makes him more of a person. It makes him more unpredictable, perhaps, and dangerous in that respect. And it also is kind of fun to be like, ugh, men are so emotional. You know, I just personally enjoy that. But this person that he's experimenting on is not in the room with him. I don't know if that is due to the way that he just organized this, like, experimentation to be set up, if that's simply a side effect because of the danger, perhaps, of being in the room with the person. It doesn't seem like he has an observation window into the room at all either. He is seeing a virtual representation of this person's body and vitals. And the movement of the body mimics the movement of the actual body. So he can see when they begin to convulse because they are in such pain, and they're, like, apparently really heavily sedated, and the pain is so intense it doesn't matter. They are still screaming in total agony. But is that distancing purposeful because he didn't like being around it? It says he didn't care at all. And there's a difference between not caring that somebody's in pain and finding it distasteful to witness it, you know? And I really wonder if it's just a byproduct of the way this has to be set up, or if that was part of his intent was, like, distancing himself from it. Oh, I didn't realize that. Heather says, as I recall, he's completely off-site from where the actual subject is. I think the subjects are actually in other facilities around the world. Oh, that's wild. Okay, so he can just get subjects. I mean, when he said you could go to, like, a dictator or some developing country, I thought that was an implication that he simply, like, picked up and moved. But if he can do this from and have all these satellite locations, that's much more efficient. That makes a lot of sense. Heather says, I don't know if that's explicitly said anywhere. It might, I started this so long ago, it might have been, but I don't remember. Okay, that makes more sense then. Interesting. All right, well, cool. Thank you, Heather. So this, as I say, does not go well. His assistant is like, okay, so he died, but we have his body, so we're going to check out what happened. And he asks for, first of all, she asks him if he wants a cup of tea. And says something specifically about a level of his that gets dropped when, here it is. Would you like some tea, Dr. Spears? These setbacks always increase your Deravine levels beyond optimum levels. And I don't know if that is something that is like specifically to, yeah, I looked up a dictionary, like, you know, with my Kindle, you can highlight stuff. And that is apparently not like a word found in the dictionary. So I am assuming that this is something going on with him that's like proprietary. But I don't know if that's, you know, I don't know what that is. And he declines. And tells her, sometimes it's good to feel stress, to feel anger. It makes you work harder to achieve your goals. I see that you are starting to understand that yourself. So that's the thing that I was referring to with him sort of implying that there's growth happening with this AI. So here comes something sort of incredible. And I don't know what to do with it. But he asks her to pull up CNN. And he sits back in this chair and watches the discussion, or it's not even, it's just a broadcast of this woman sharing the information about what happened with the Dunlevy. And again, the, like, you know, it was an accident, it was an abandoned sea mine. That is the apparent story we're being fed here. And he asks for biographical data on the reporter whose name is Dana Lancaster. It showed her address, phone number, measurements, and current resume. And he tells Jenna, place a call to Ms. Lancaster and arrange a dinner for some time next week. So it's not even just like, I'm going to ask her out. He is so incredibly confident that the idea she would not accept isn't even considered. It's just 100% for granted. I'm going to dinner with her next week. I just have to put my secretary in touch. He's not even asking her out himself. I don't know what I would think. And this is part of it is like, I don't live in the world of show business, right? And that is what being on news is, even though it's a very different kind of show business than doing acting or something like that. You're still a minor celebrity. You're still on camera all the time. You're still a public figure with access to people. If I were of that world, would a man I don't know contacting me via an assistant asking me to dinner seem incredibly impertinent? Or would I be like, all right, why not? I guess I'll go why not? I just don't know. I think a part of me would be just a little too curious, you know? Now, as a person of the regular, ordinary, everyman world, absolutely fucking not. No. I mean, I can't emphasize enough, no. And it's mentioned that, you know, he doesn't get turned down often because he's attractive and he's rich. And I'm sure that's probably true. Can't get away from that, you know. However, as a woman, that being treated as a foregone conclusion in that way is a major turnoff. But like I said, when you live in a different kind of world, which somebody who is on television every day doubtless must, maybe you take it differently. I just wonder if he had attempted this with a woman who wasn't of this world, would it work? And I don't know that it does work, but he's so confident that I'm assuming it will, you know? Okay. I had said just before I got started that I thought I heard thunder, and now it's gone very dark. So yeah, that's definitely about to start. So if you hear that on the recording, my bad. Well, not even my bad. I didn't start the thunderstorm, but just know that's what's happening here. Heather says ambiance. I think it depends how ambitious the individual is. She could see it as an excellent opportunity to get an exclusive. That's a good point. And I didn't really think of it in terms of her as a reporter. The thing is, when you're an anchor, you're not exactly a reporter anymore. And I don't know what kind of what kind of options are open for you on that. But that doesn't necessarily signify. She could maybe just do what she wants. And also, if you're an ambitious individual outside of, getting an exclusive, but you just want to upward climb socially, being with somebody who's incredibly wealthy is going to be a step to that. And so that's just one of those things that for me, I never see absurd wealth as a perk. I have dated a couple people who had a lot of money, and they were not fun to date. It was a real weird experience. And so for me, that's actually not a turn on. I understand in theory why it would be for people, but I found it to be sort of a detractor. So I always just have a negative reaction, and I have to remind myself that I think I'm in the minority on that. I'm not trying to be some women are just gold diggers, but I'm not like that. I'm not trying to say that at all. I'm just saying that there was a consistency in shitty attitude and personality with both the dudes who had money that has made me believe that is just a kind of standard feature that I would find unless they were a really unusual person. And this sort of behavior would not signify that they were an unusual sort of person. It would indicate they had that exact kind of attitude. So for me, it would just be an immediate no. But, like I said, he apparently has not had that experience. So I really wonder how, because obviously he's not with anybody, unless he just is and doesn't care and that person hasn't come up. But I don't think so. I anticipate that he's single. Do women see that he is a crazy monster and bow out? Or does he just want to fucking take off and ghost them? Or what? And also, if he does manage to get them into bed, what kind of lover is a guy like this? I am deeply curious. I feel like he'd have to be god-awful, right? Somebody who just doesn't have any empathy for the other person. I really have to think, no good. Just, how can you be this closed off to other people and still have the kind of anticipation of their needs that you have to be good in bed? So I have to imagine he'd be very bad, and I would be delighted to find out that he thinks that he's ghosting women when in fact they are hoping to never hear from him again because he was just terrible. Having been in that position also, I can relate. So this is when he gets the phone call from Tretyak. And what it comes down to with Tretyak is, first of all, he only has audio, but he puts the voice through this modulator that senses whether or not there is stress, whether or not it seems like he's telling the truth. And Tretyak gives him the bare minimum of information on why things didn't go to plan. And I didn't realize until later on in the conversation, Spears doesn't know that Tretyak's team has amplified beings, awakened beings. I'm not sure that I'd call them awakened when it's not a natural process. It's something that has been forced. I'm going to call them amplified just because that feels more correct to me. But he begins to realize that because he had a suspicion, he didn't know for sure, but he had a suspicion, and he starts to realize that it has to be the case because they went up against awakened. They weren't ready for it. They didn't know they would be there, but they went up against awakened beings and managed to come out with only a couple casualties and still succeed in the mission. And as far as he's concerned, that points to like they would never have survived. They couldn't have done this at all if they went up against awakened beings and they didn't have their own advantages. So that gives him some information that he didn't have before. And he tries at first to just be like wheedle a little bit and be kind of shitty about the fact that it was sloppier than it should have been. But once he realizes the situation, he's like, oh, actually, good job then. Like that's, and he also assumes that they killed a couple of these people and is really mad that they didn't take the bodies for him to examine until it's made clear, like, oh, none of them died. Like, and there was no way we were going to turn around and try and kill them. Like, we were focused on the extraction of what you paid for, and that was it. And at the end of the conversation, it wraps basically with him being like, if you find out anything about these beings and where they are, find a way to kill them and get me their bodies. I'll pay $1 million for each one of them. And that's pretty much a wrap on that scene. So then we go to chapter 14, where we've got this kid named Carl Erickson, who is a hacker, and he is the one that Tretyak. His team goes to this kid to get information on people that they are trying to track down. And he is being manhandled because the file he has for Jordan is so thin, they assume he's holding back information. To which he rightfully is like, literally, why would I do that? I really, like, he just keeps being like, what the fuck do I get out of it? Why would you're here in front of me beating the shit out of me. I'll give you what you want. I'm not hiding anything. Come on. And eventually they begin to see reason. Archie is like, all right, I'm not going to kill you, but you are not done. And he asks him to find the information on the person who had been her last commander, Archibald, what's his last name? Stevens. Archibald Stevens. Now, I know that you sent me notes, but I'm sorry, Heather, I didn't go back and check them. I just thought of this. This guy is the one that really didn't like Jordan and couldn't, like, he just couldn't help the fact that she was extremely good at her job, but she knew that he was kind of a misogynist, right? He thinks she's uppity. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Also, it makes sense why he's so, like, my daughter got a nose piercing. Oh, get over yourself. I wonder what happened to her nose piercing. Did that shit melt? Anyway, so he is getting the information on this guy because he figures that he can go to him and extract what he needs about Jordan, which is not incorrect. We go from there, before we actually head to Stevens' house, we go to the lab in the, what's the word I want? At the location where Jordan is, at like the headquarters. And we're with Chance, who is the brother of, I can't remember his name, but he's the lieutenant. Shaw, right, thank you. So, Chance is, like, adorable, first of all. I just really like him. He's got a great energy, and he comes in here with, this sort of vibe. He knows he's gonna see Regina, aka Reggie, who is sort of the person you gotta get past in order to see Dr. Linden. She isn't a doctor yet, but she's working on it. And she also kind of controls his schedule. She's an assistant, but, you know, she commands a great deal of respect. She's not seen as a simple secretary. And he looks forward to seeing her in a way that I'm just like, oh, do you? She's described as a tall, leggy blonde, but not a supermodel, with a natural girl next door prettiness. And I was just like, a tall, leggy blonde sounds like a supermodel, but, you know, I can't see her face, so what do I know? And it turns out, as the conversation progresses, she can read minds, which, as she puts it, really puts a damper on first dates. Dating does not go super well for her. I can't imagine. This is a bit that's in the Sookie Stackhouse series as well, because she's a mind reader. And she talks about how difficult it is to, like, have sex with somebody whose mind you can read, because anything derogatory they think about your body is, it just completely kills it for you, you know? So it's not even just in dating, which is hard enough. It's like the sexual aspect of it basically means that she had sex like twice in her life. It was low-key traumatizing, and she has not tried again, which is part of why when she meets somebody that she can't read their mind, she's just like, oh, thank God. And the what she says later, because he tries to not think about the fact that she can read his mind, and it is obvious that it just doesn't help or do anything. And she even comments that, like, when people try and keep their thoughts from being read, it inadvertently makes them louder. And he's just kind of like, oh, God, all right. And he thinks to himself about whether or not she is still... So he had been seeing this lady. It comes up in conversation because she's with the CIA. And he was seeing her. And now he has to go to them to get some information. And when he's talking about this with Reggie, she brings up, she's not mad at you for standing her up, is she? And he says, no, I cleared that up. And I'm really curious what happened there. Good. She sounded like a nice woman. She's great. Hopefully she'll be able to give me what I need. I thought you two weren't dating anymore, Reggie added playfully. Chance was seldom embarrassed, but Reggie's off-color comment managed to bring color to his cheeks. We aren't. The long-distance thing didn't work out. And she's just like, I'm sorry. She can see that he's... I mean, even if you couldn't read his mind, she can see that he is discomfited by this. And then, I love this moment, he's thinking to himself, I wonder if she's still seeing that guy. What is it? Bob Jacobs from Operations. When she smiled at him and raised her eyebrows, Chance smiled just a bit wider. I'm having dinner in the cafeteria at 7. What a coincidence. That's when I was going to eat, Chance said and grinned. He stole a glance at Reggie as he made for the door and was pleased to see that she was still smiling. I love this flirting. This really was cute. And it was certainly like a needed bit of levity after how intense things have been. So yeah, I'm rooting for you too. Go for it, Chance. And he's the one that can change the odds on stuff, but there's no mention of him attempting to manipulate whether or not she'd say yes to going to dinner with him, so appreciate you. So this is when he goes in to see Dr. Linden, and Dr. Linden is like clearly really, what's the word I want? Distracted isn't it. He's just, he has something heavy on his mind. Preoccupied, I guess. And he doesn't even notice when Chance comes in at first until Chance clears his throat and then he almost hits the ceiling in surprise, even though he should have known he was there. So Chance has brought in a cup of tea for him and he has some of it, but it's clear that he's just sort of not really here yet. The man in front of him made slow, efficient movements. Lyndon's body language, combined with the slight hunch to his shoulders, reminded Chance of his own grandfather. Lyndon looked old. The doctor was in his early 50s or late 40s at most, and he was far from infirm. That's bloody odd. Does he have an ability that we don't know about? Because it seems like he goes back to his usual self once he gets excited about the subject matter, when Chance asks the right questions. But there was a moment here where I was like, is something else happening here? Is there something in addition? Did he just like inject himself with some shit to see what happened? Like, I could see him doing that. So he asks for more information about Jordan. And he does it with such an attitude that I was kind of like, I mean, is somebody like manipulating him somehow? What's going on? And let's see. Yeah, so he asked for the info. Chance says we can't. Her files are restricted. They didn't explain why. The doctor countered, I'm sure you know why. Chance couldn't deny that. I do. Does the why really matter? No, but I still need that information. What do you need specifically? I need you to promise me that you'll keep this between us, at least for now. Nobody, not even the director, can know, not until I can confirm my suspicions. That's a big request, Doc, but I'll bite. What's going on? I need access to Jordan's family medical records. I need names, medical history, and DNA, especially DNA. And Chance is basically like, this is legit the exact shit we're supposed to not give out information. Like, this is the particular thing we were told to keep our mouths shut about. If he found out I were giving anything like this out, it would be my ass. And Lyndon's basically like, the thing that I am suspicious of here is so massive that I am willing to risk basically my entire career being blown up. Like, that's the implication here. And Chance asks, what is she, the cure for cancer? The fountain of youth? You gotta give me something. The doctor suddenly seemed full of his usual energy and excitement. It was as if a switch flipped in his brain somewhere and everything was back to normal. The man gripped Chance by his shoulders and smiled brightly. No, all of that is nothing compared to what I've found. Tell me, Chance, do you know anything about ancient sciences? And that's the end of that chapter. So I have no idea. You know, the term ancient scientists did not like clue me in or give me any idea. So I got nothing on that. So I'm very interested to see what that is. So then we go into chapter 15. And we are with Stevens here as he comes home. I wasn't entirely sure how this was going to go. Because, you know, we're aware that Stevens is going to be the target of the team, the Russian team. But I wasn't sure if they were going to attack him outside at his car. If he would get home and be with his family and they would attack in the midst of him, you know, like, I did not think that they were already there though, like inside the house. If they were already there, I was expecting them to hit him in the driveway. I don't know why I would have thought that, because doing something externally at all would be much more likely to be seen. Even though this is a really private property, there's probably external cameras and stuff. And I don't know, though. If they got there already, they'd have disabled all of that. It probably wouldn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's not what happened. They're already there. They've got the music up inside that he is used to hearing from his daughter, so he doesn't think anything of it, but it's clearly to sort of camouflage things. And he gets hit when he comes in, and it's not even like a fight. He makes a show, I want to say, and that's sort of like, sounds really cruel to make it sound like he's pretending he can do something. But like, honestly, that's kind of what it comes down to. The man is in no position to help, but he keeps on like valiantly flailing about as if he can. And it takes a little while before he is willing to accept the position that he is in. There are 5 younger, well-trained, super fit men in his home. And it's him and his wife and his daughter. There is no way he's doing anything. And he doesn't even know about their like physical enhancements, which if he knew that, I think he probably would have given up the fight even earlier. And there's a couple of interesting moments where he notices that the other men's response to the violence that's happening seems to cause this sharpened interest, like they're all getting more bloodthirsty, which I don't recall it, like whether or not it's specifically mentioned, but you know, we do know that their sense of smell and everything is extremely heightened. do they just crave violence more, or is that simply their personalities? Like, I just wonder about how that functions. And is that like a chemical response in their brain? Is it like how sharks scent blood and are immediately like, let's go, bitches? Because that's sort of how I interpreted it, but I wasn't sure if that was correct. And his wife is, like I said, not blindfolded. His daughter is. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, okay, so they're going to use his daughter. And I was relieved to see that neither of them had been sexually assaulted, although the threat of that is not far behind. And his daughter keeps on sort of like mouthing off, and they deck her in the gut a couple times, and she goes down, and he is like really on the edge of losing it. So Arcady pulls out the photo of Jordan and is like, who is this woman? And when he shows Stevens the photo, he notes Stevens recognized it was probably taken with a very expensive camera using a multispectral lens that wasn't bought at a local electronics store. Whoever these men were, they were well-funded professionals, and that terrified him. So he gives basic information on who Jordan is and the fact that she, was reassigned. And let's see. Your daughter's got a mouth. I want to know everything you know about this woman, Stevens. Everything. If I think you're lying, I'm going to break your hand. He does say your hand, but he says Stevens, which is, to be fair, also his wife's last name. But yeah, at this point, I was just kind of like, I don't think they will break his hand. I just sort of had this vibe. So he gives as much information as he thinks he can get away with. And of course, Arcady knows that that's what he's doing. Reminder that they have like those super senses that can smell fear and whatnot. And I can only imagine that he's able to tell that the guy is lying pretty easily. The large man appeared to be considering something, and then he gestured nonchalantly to the man holding Helena Stevens. Two of the men grabbed Helena and dragged her over to the island where Stephen was. One of them took her left forearm and forced her hand down on a wooden cutting board while he grabbed the cast iron frying pan with his free hand. There was no hesitation as he brought the bottom of it down on Helena Stevens' hand, crushing nearly every bone in it with a loud, wet sound. Yeah, it just happens so suddenly. I really wasn't ready for it. I knew it was coming, but I just thought it would take longer to get there. And there was something about the fact that this guy doesn't hesitate. There's no change in expression that makes it feel like... So I covered Robopocalypse for another Spoil Me, which if you guys are interested in like the robot uprising, it's fascinating. It's really well done. It was written by somebody who majored in like robotics at Carnegie Mellon. So he not only knows what he's talking about, but he's also not hugely anti-technology, which a lot of those books can feel like they're just anti-tech. And he's clearly not. He goes to pains to explain why these machines were put in the positions they were in because they provided a lot of benefits. But one thing that he describes that I felt really viscerally was that people, when they hear about a robot attack, they imagine the kinds of like humanoid machines that are easy to knock down that don't feel threatening. And he encouraged people to think of them as more like getting your hair caught in a meat grinder, where it's not that the thing is targeting you in a personal way. It's that you get caught and it's just this inexorable engine that just keeps yanking you. And you maybe can rip yourself away, but you'll cause such an injury that you could bleed to death. Or you just get pulled in and there's just literally no fighting back. It's a machine with like thousands of pounds of force behind it. And you can't stop it unless you have access to a power button. It's that simple. And there was something about that made it so much scarier to me. 'cause, I mean, we all have a very healthy fear of things like, for example, we all know about not putting your fucking hand down into a garbage disposal. If there's any possibility somebody's going to be nearby to flick that switch, you just don't fuck with that, And there was something about the description of this guy and the way he picked up the pan and slammed it down that felt like that to me. That it was just like, he just began to do the thing because that is what you do. This is the situation, he was told, and here we go. And there was just no slowing it. There's nothing human left for you to reason with anymore. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just was like, okay, so that guy's a meat grinder. Good to know. So yeah, this whole thing is really awful to sit through. And Stevens is just losing it because he has, up until this point, he really thought that he could play it. And eventually he gets taken off to the sort of breakfast nook area, and Archie sits down and pours him some vodka and is like, all right, look, you don't need to know what we want her for. All you need to know is that you and your wife are absolutely not getting out of this. You have to know that, setting that aside, your daughter is still up for debate. She has not seen our faces. She could be released from here. She could survive if you make this deal with me. And this point, the way that he says this here, you give me what I'm asking for, and I'll make sure your daughter walks out of here alive. She stays that way unless she does something foolish. If you refuse, I will make certain that she is left alive, but only after everything that can be done to her has been done. You will watch. Your wife will watch. Then you will watch the same happen to your wife. I am not an unreasonable man, but I am a busy one. I have little time for games. And this is when Stevens is like, oh, fuck. Genuinely comes to terms with, here's my situation. He asks, why should I believe you? And Archie's like, I'll give you my word. And basically comes down to, we'll shake on it. You decide your child's fate. If she is strong enough, she will survive this. If she's not, then she won't. I can offer no more than that, but it is more than my friends here would have given you. If they were allowed a free hand, they would do far worse things to them. And I was just like, these guys sound like fucking, Dothraki, practically, So, Archie, we have sort of a moment where we're in his POV. He knew the man was no soldier, but he could respect his desire to keep his child alive. This sort of work was always ugly, but Tretyak wouldn't accept failure or loose ends. To fail in the Vodnik was rare, and it was never looked on well. They were like brothers, he and Constantine, but Archie knew his friend well enough to know that he was serious about capturing this Jordan law woman. So, yeah, we're given that moment, I think, just so that we know he means this, Otherwise, there could be just doubt left in our minds. I believed him by now, because I know that he just doesn't really bother with lying. There's not really much point, but I already believed him, but I did appreciate that confirmation. So Stevens gives up everything. What her name is, who her parents are, who her sisters are, where she went to school, who she's engaged to, what he does for a living, what she did in the field, and what kind of aptitudes she showed, and who she works for now, but, not really sure what branch she's in, what kind of protection her family and she probably have. And then eventually, Archie asks for her address, and he literally has it memorized, I guess, and just writes it down. Guys, I don't think I have a single solitary soul on the face of Earth's address memorized other than mine. I could probably pull up the address that I had in high school if I really thought about it. But otherwise, the idea of somebody having an address memorized, and I'm not even trying to criticize this in terms of the writing. I just mean, when you're somebody who's trained for these sorts of things, it would make sense to me that you know that stuff, It's just, when I stop to think about my position, if somebody were to demand that I like find out this information, I would have to just hope that I had at one point sent them an Amazon package and that it remained as an address in my like Amazon address selections. I'd have to like hand over my phone and be like, open Amazon and go to my account and then go to addresses. It's in there somewhere. I don't know, man. I don't even know if it's the same address. I sent her that Christmas gift like 7 years ago. But anyway, he gives Stevens a minute after taking this address information to be with his family in a moment of like rare compassion, honestly, that kind of surprised me. And it's really awful to know, like, now that we know what happens, it loses some of its weight because we know they're okay. But I genuinely really thought we were about to watch this man get shot. So I was also just like, oh, this is awful. And his daughter, Lily, is aware of what's likely to happen. She's not an idiot. And he is telling her how much he loves her. And he just really regrets that he can't pull the blindfold down and like look into her eyes because, yeah, you know you're about to die and never see this person again. That is definitely what you would want. And he just decides to make the most of this this last moment with them. And she's telling them, Lily is, don't kill them. I'll do whatever you want. And she doesn't even get hit for it. There's just no response at all. To which her dad is like, that's not going to help. Just don't. And then she says, fuck you then. Fuck you all. I hope you burn in hell, you fucking wankers. That got a reaction from the mercenaries, and one of the men took Lily by her arms and pulled her toward the door roughly. Full of rage and fear, the young woman screamed and kicked frantically the entire way. The man hauled his hand back to slap her, but a dangerous look from Arcady stopped it. Scowling, the bald man turned and spoke quietly but firmly to the girl. Your father gave you a chance. You should take it. You will not be given another. And I was like, girl, what was he pulling her into another room for? What was that about? She's just yelling at you. What does that do? Nothing. Knock it off. Let her yell at you, you whiny little brats. Christ. So, and there's, I should mention too that Stevens is sort of wondering if they let his daughter live, are they just going to like take her to be pimped out somewhere? Which hadn't occurred to me that could be a concern, but like I totally could see how he would be worried about that now. I was sort of like, I felt like a bit of a dope for that not even occurring to me, but yeah, I could see that. I don't think that's what they were going to do at all based on Arcady's POV, but it's not an unreasonable assumption to make or fear to have. So this is when he says, this is your only chance. Lily, go. You're a Stevens. Never forget that. Your mother and I love you. Lily's body shook as she heard the resignation in her father's voice. Helplessness and rage burned inside of her chest so brightly that it hurt. The large man that held her pulled her toward the door again. Summoning all of her strength, Lily jerked her arm away and stabbed her index finger at him, an angry response on her lips. Before it could be given voice, however, there was a loud hissing sound like bacon being cooked on a hot griddle. Around her finger, the air warped as intense heat formed a halo around her entire hand, about the size of a dinner plate. The hissing turned into an angry rush of heat and air, and a beam of brilliant golden light shot from Lily's fingertips straight through the startled Vodnik soldier's face. To Arcady, it seemed as if the girl had somehow captured the sun in her hand. The energy that had surrounded her finger had spread down her arm and over her upper body, incinerating the t-shirt she wore instantly. Though the Stevens daughter clearly didn't notice the nimbus of heat that burned around her, the temperature in the room had gone up by 20 degrees and anything flammable nearby was catching fire. His man, Vasily, had become a human inferno the moment the beam of energy had burned through his head and through the back wall of the brick house. And I was like, through the back wall of the brick house? Like, that was the first moment that I really got the scale of what was about to happen. Because up to this point, I'm thinking, oh, she just killed that one guy, and she's kind of lost it for a second, and stuff around her is catching fire. But it still felt contained to the room. You know what I'm saying? And once I saw that it went through the wall, and it's a brick house, I'm like, oh no. So Arcady is like, guys, get out. And it's like so loud because of this power that's happening that you can barely even hear him, but everybody's realizing how serious this is. So Archie and Helena, they are at this point just like not even a factor. These guys could take a minute and just bullet them in the head, but they don't, because I think they're just like, well, we'll just leave them here and they'll just die. I think they just assumed we can run much faster than these two. They will absolutely be cooked. It's no question. And that is not how that went. So now we've got some guys out there who know what your faces look like, suckers. But the two of them, they go and like bury themselves in this like creek, which winds up saving their lives. The water keeps them from getting burned. Thankfully, the like heat isn't enough to immediately evaporate the creek, which I was sort of worried would happen. But it seems like it's sort of down the, like there's a dip in the land also. And the way that the explosion goes outward, it's like on a flat plane. So I get the impression that they were slightly below the level of it as well to a degree. But anyway, Arcady and his guys go fucking flat out sprinting. And one of them turns around and he does get cooked. Let's see. 3 of his men followed suit through though the 4th made the mistake of looking back at the radiant light. There was a stark, brief moment of silence, and then the world turned white. And it's essentially like a tiny nuclear explosion is the feel of it, you know? And there's a crater that is literally glass at the bottom. That's the kind of heat that this put off. So Stevens and his wife survive, but one more of Arcady's guys dies. Let's see. Arcady's 4th man, chased by an inferno of thermal energies that set the large lawn alight and tossed the shattered form of Arcady's 4th man into the air like a rag doll. So he did. And they get out of there, but this explosion, understandably, draws the attention of the special branch. So Stevens, he goes back to like see his daughter. He makes sure that his wife is still alive because she is passed out. I'm not mad at that. I would too. Like just getting your hand broken like that would probably be enough to make me pass out anyway. Never mind the whole rest of this shit. And he leaves her and goes to see his daughter, who is still like giving off so much heat that he can't even touch her at first. He has to sort of wait for her to cool down. She's still alive. She still seems to have all her hair also. That is described as sort of floating around her head because of the like heat. But she is alive. And eventually he like wraps her in a coat, and then this light falls on them, and there is a chopper above them. And this dude jumps down. Have we met this jumper guy? Is this somebody that we know? It's Chance. Oh, okay, cool. Thank you, Heather. I don't know, like, are we supposed to know that? I just wasn't sure if I was meant to realize who he was, but I just didn't. And I don't think I knew that Chance had this like jumping ability as well. But maybe that's just part of being like stronger than average. Maybe that's not like considered a special ability. Oh, Heather says he doesn't. He's using equipment. Okay. That didn't occur to me that, okay, cool. Oh, that's okay. So that's what this is. I'm seeing. Stevens could hear a quiet humming from the 2 half spheres fitted to the sides of his combat harness. The devices were no bigger than half a tennis ball. And as the man touched down on the ground, they went silent. I didn't catch that. Got you. Okay, cool. So he manages to convince Stevens pretty quickly, like, we're on your side, buddy. It's okay. And he takes his daughter up first, and then comes back down for Stevens and his wife. And the guy who is waiting for him up there in the chopper is McIntyre, who he knows, you know, but he just wasn't sure what the deal was with McIntyre's branch. So now he's going to, you know, begin to figure out what was going on there, and probably what was going on with Jordan also. I don't know how much information he'll be given on that, but I'm sure he'll put 2 and 2 together. And I love when McIntyre, he says, first of all, that threw off so much electromagnetic energy that it knocked out the power for 2 kilometers. And then he asks, what happened? And Stevens is like, I don't know. And I don't think you'd believe it if I tried to tell you. And McIntyre's like, I encourage you to try anyway, because I think you'll be surprised. And that is the end of that chapter. Heather says the forms checking the perimeter on the ground when Archie is evacuated are Jordan and Douglas. Oh, okay, cool. I didn't even notice that mentioned, but I was a little bit focused on making sure that they actually survived. I do feel bad because Stevens is going to have to confess that he gave up all the information on Jordan. I don't think she'll blame him. I think they will understand, but that's going to be a problem, you know, and I'm sure he's going to feel like shit unless he doesn't tell them, but I think he'll tell them, you know, he's going to be safe enough now that there isn't any, like, the only thing holding him from telling the truth is his ego. And I don't think he's the type. So yeah, we'll see how they have to deal with that. Yeah, all right. Well, I have to wrap up. I'm a little over time here, but the next episode isn't until September 17th. After that, we get into a rhythm again. But just FYI, you guys, that there'll be a little bit of a wait, but I am excited to find out what happens next. So thank you again, Heather, for commissioning this. I hope you're enjoying the coverage, everybody. And until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.